Herkese merhabalar. We have Itay Talgam today with us, who is one of our speakers at the HR Summit on 10-11 November 2020. And Itay will be one of the keynote speakers at our summit, where we are delighted to host Itay. Welcome, Itay. Great to have you.
Thank you. Merhaba.
Merhaba. And Itay is, as you very well know, is an orchestra conductor, and he's turned into a teacher, conductor of people, as we say between us, and he's been teaching and leading workshops and talks in government, academia, business, education, even therapy, and he's been the he's been the prominent voice about leading like a conductor, and this is what we will be talking about. And his focus is about kind of creating space for people, for dialogue, for creativity. And I don't want to take too much of space, but Itay, thank you very much for being with us, and welcome to our webinar. And I would like to start asking you, you've been talking about leading like a conductor. You know, if you look at today's world with all the changes, with the pandemic issues and the technology, I think this becomes even more relevant. But where does the need for leading like a conductor comes from? What need it serves in your perspective?
Thank you for a wonderful question. Well, I think I should say that first, there is a general need for metaphors or metaphorical thinking. You know, our world is so full of technologies, all kinds of technologies, that we might, technological management procedures, I would say, not just gadgets and Zoom things and the like. So the know-how is maybe there, but it's very specialized. And I think there needs to be a metaphorical thinking, meaning you start looking for mirrors near and far from what you do in order to get a new perspective of your world, maybe expand the world, add dimensions to your vision. That is one thing. The other thing, which relates to conducting specifically, is that conducting has this, strange mixture of, first of all, something that's, very tangible in terms of there is an outcome, immediate outcome in sound that everybody can hear. Everybody can hear whether the orchestra plays together or not. If they play out of tune or in tune, everybody knows that it's a precision mechanism that has to work for the music to do justice to the music. But everybody also realizes that the techniques and mechanics of it is not enough. And there's let me use a big word, a spiritual dimension to it.
Yes.
Harmony. Harmony is, me and my wife, we have an agreement as to who does the dishes when, which is a kind of harmony, but that's technical. We also need to have some connection, beyond that, hopefully. So we are looking for harmony, which is something on one hand, and on the other hand, there's this hands-on thing that, if you do this, then the percussion will follow, or if you do this, it will be quiet. It's really like, driving a car. It's so immediate, and yet there's no steering wheel. There's no mechanical something that actually takes you. It's all done through other people. And how do we together create this wonderful vehicle out of thinking, creative people coming together to create something together? That's what makes it, I think, a very special metaphor.
Wonderful. I remember this metaphor actually first time used that I heard for me was with Peter Drucker. I had the opportunity to attend a live workshop with Peter at that time, and these were like I'm talking about 1995 probably, and Peter was talking about leading and managing, and he was giving the example of his son-in-law, and he was a second violin in the orchestra, and he was talking about the case that, well, he would want to be the first violin, maybe he would not, maybe he would be in a different orchestra, but he wouldn't have the ambition of being the conductor. That was like, that was the moment like, oh wow, this is a very interesting metaphor.
Hmm.
But as for many other things, Peter Drucker was ahead of his time, including that. But I think this is
Yeah.
now the era that Peter Drucker's perspectives are even more valid. We are living. Yeah, you want to say something?
Something more to the, this, even this word conducting, I'm not sure, what is the word in Turkish?
The yönetmek, which is actually the same word, or chef, orkestra şefi, which is the same word like more management.
Yeah, yeah, but conductor is not.
Not exactly.
In my mother's tongue in Hebrew, it's, oh, we have a special term, and the term for conductor is the same. It's not. It happens to be the same word we use for a winner. So if you're a conductor, you're the winner, which makes everybody else a loser. It's very nice.
Is that right? What is the Hebrew word?
Winner in the organization, and all the others are. But also, if you say chef d'orchestra, immediately you hear inside, you hear the sous chef and the very hierarchic,
Yes.
thinking
Yes.
down to the people actually peeling potatoes in the kitchen. Oh, second violin, which is could be. But the English word, I'm simply in love with this English term, because if you open a dictionary, a conductor is, you want to conduct a light bulb to the mains. Simply to put it on, you have to use conducting materials for those cables, connecting the light bulbs. So it's not about you, it's all about your ability to actually connect other people, other elements. And there's something so, I would say calming, if not, it's not about you, it's simply how you help the other people or the other elements in your organization come together in the best way.
Yes, exactly. And in today's world, that is becoming more and more relevant, because what I'm noticing more and more is we are still trying to manage our companies with the traditions and rituals of 1800s, beginning of industrial era, where we had workers and managers, and in today's world, all of a sudden, most of the workers' work are now being done by computers, algorithms, and robots, and it doesn't mean that we are going to lose our jobs, but we will be working with more and more skilled and conscious people,
Yeah,
which to me
yeah.
requires a different way of leading.
Now, remember from the first day of the coronavirus, I mean, this pandemic now, can't remember who it was. It was an American authority. I think it was a general in the army before that. And then he was giving some tips that how, you have to be very clear in your messages to the people. They should know what they are expected to do. They should know what the leader knows about the future, but it's all, between me and you, it's worth nothing, because the leader doesn't know anything more than the cleaning lady in the corridor. Nobody knows. Now, does that mean that if you don't know, you lose your authority, or you use your authority to build something that people can understand as enhanced capabilities within the organization? Yeah, that will help this organization face the unknown, face the, what life will throw at us next week. Who knows? Maybe even in an hour. Who knows? Now, really, everything is so fluid and so changing. So people have to really shift I think that I mean, if they were indeed in this idea of, okay, I'm here, I'm going to tell you what to do because I'm the manager and I know, no, you don't know. And as soon as you admit that and actually understand that your, again, role is now to help everybody to create a net, flexible and adaptable to confront all the uncertainties, I think the better you'll do. And the question is, of course, why are conductors a good example for that?
Well, yes, and I want to come to that question, and you reminded me, one of my mentors, I had the opportunity to work with Bill Critchley, and he had taught me, the first thing he taught me was, he's also a therapist. He said, as managers in this complex world, it's a fallacy that we are in control. He says that as managers, if there are any management roles left, we are in charge but not in control, and we should start, acknowledging that fact, and then we are conscious. The way I understood that, we are all participants in this phenomena of leading, and I think being a leader is, what I gather from what you say, is being a conscious participant. This kind of takes me to the spiritual dimension, which takes down to a very practical way. But yeah, so I want to come to your question that, why the conductors can do that in that case.
Well, first of all, you have a very wide range of conducting methods or styles or ideas. I would say many of the classical type conductors are really managers of that belong to that old world you were describing. So you're standing there in the middle, there are so many signs of authority. You're positioned in the center, you're above everybody, you're the only one who has the score, which has all the different parts of the orchestra. You have maybe 300 people on stage. If you're playing an opera or an oratoria, you have the choir, you have the soloist, you have the orchestra. So many people. You're the only one who knows what everybody's doing. Add to that the fact that people greet you coming in with before you did anything. Everybody already know that everything depends on you. This can very easily go to your head. And indeed, not only in a nice way, it's also a huge burden. Some of those autocratic, I would say, dictator conductors, you talk to them and they say, look, it's like being on a desert island. I'm alone here. I'm responsible to whom? To him. I mean, they mean the composer. They don't mean God, but they mean the composer, who's for musicians quite close to the highest authority. So and so it's my burden. It's what I have to do. But in our little talk, I think we'll start from there. We'll start from. I think that in pandemic times, let's say, the feeling of losing control is so strong that many people might be tempted to try to, whatever you have, you'll hold here. Keep it. Otherwise, maybe you will not be needed. But from this, let's say, base one, we shall try to go and gain another perspective on what conductors can actually do. There are two conductors I will try to, two pillars, if I may quote you, of my conversation will be, on one hand, Carlos Kleiber, who is maybe the best conductor in history in terms of his ability to manually, or shall I say physically, with his gestures, bodily gestures, really bring to life visually the flow of music. So he is all about, think of a dancer, a good dancer.
Almost shamanic, right? His style is almost shamanic, with the...
Yeah, but you said shamanic, and I also heard dynamic, because if you think about a kind of a movement which is not like give it to me here now, the deadline, but something that goes like this, And the minute you see even the beginning of, you see a whole process. You have this idea of seeing the complete idea through even one. So he's one, and it's so beautiful to look at how flexible, we were speaking about flexibility, how flexible his orchestra is able to dance with him. And the reason is that, again, there's such elasticity which doesn't tell them what to do. And because they're not told what to do, they have to come up with their own interpretations, by which, of course, they become owners of the whole thing. And now you think, okay, they are interpreting, but what will make this whole thing come together? And then, and we'll touch upon that, we'll go into the kitchen of how to do that. He actually trains them to do just that. Not 10 times, let's play it until we get it right, but something like, just imagine he says, look, he says to the players, he says, look, you are supposed to be able to guess. You don't know. I'm not telling you because I can't. But you, based on everything that you know, based on your connections to other people, to other functions in orchestra, you are able to guess. So you will guess. And so he pushes them to take risks. He draws the boundaries of this risk-taking. His role is to be there when something goes wrong and to say, hey, look, I won't get too much into that because that's what we'll do in the summit, I guess. But yes. I'm just saying, you're beginning to see a conductor who's actually helping to instill those capabilities inside the organization. So instead of having outside control, the control is something that's embedded already in what's happening between him and his players and between the players themselves. So that's one conductor, and just not to lose the big.
So here in this conductor, we have just enough structure, but yeah. Then we have also place for emergence, for the creativity and capabilities.
Completely. Thank you for the summarizing this so well. I wanted to say he puts let's say a kind of a platform in motion, and he gets everybody to go on this whatever moving platform, but they are also able to change the platform. So it was I don't know, it was a car, and then it became something else because they changed it. And he's completely open for this dialogue. It's going not down, up, or it's a full circle. In fact, the circle is a very good metaphor for what it does, because the circle also gives you an idea of, I always use the metaphor of a roller coaster. People roller coaster, you don't need to tell them what to do. What is keeping them in place, even if they unstrap themselves, is the inertia that's being generated by, I'm sorry, my enthusiasm.
This is the roller coaster experience.
The computer. By the inertia that's being, the forces that are being created by the process itself. So instead of telling people what to do, he creates a process. The process itself generates those inertia that puts everybody in place relatively, but they're able to somehow build the roller coaster and change the course of it while taking the ride. And we'll be looking into how they actually do that.
Wonderful. And the second example you would give?
Yes. Okay, so one word about the other conductor, who is my great teacher, Leonard Bernstein.
Yes.
All great conductors will have structure and will have this other element that I was going to get to, which is meaning. You can have the most beautiful industrial line of assembly of something which nobody needs, which is harmful to the environment, which is, why do you make those things? So you have a good process, but you should know what kind of meaning this process is serving. So, and Bernstein started from the meaning. This dialogue, not only on musical level, but all human levels between him, the orchestra, the audience, member of the audience, and of course, the two has to, you know, come together somehow, and one prefers to start with a process like working with professionals, and one prefers to work with human beings. And of course, part of the being human is the fact that they have those incredible skills professionally. So you get to the same point.
You reminded me, I had the opportunity to play in a concert band during my high school years,
Really?
which is absolutely a special experience. And one of my music teachers would have told about this meaning. He would have, he had warned me, actually, you should not play like hammering in a factory, you should play like talking to your lover.
Ah, oh.
And this is like for me, wow, okay. So I think, and that was a completely strong intervention for me, and it changed everything.
Of course, then you had to start.
Yes.
With, what if I really had a lover?
Absolutely, and this reminded me also in one of your talks. I had the story of Riccardo Muti. So his orchestra. So maybe you want to tell a little bit about this.
Just say, Muti is, I did not mention him by name, but Muti is one of the best examples of a very autocratic conductor.
Yes.
A fine fellow. I love him. I mean, whenever I see, I don't know him personally, but whenever I see documentaries that, go behind the scenes, and he's a very amiable person, but his style is autocratic. And to the point where the story is quite a tragic story. He was the music director of La Scala in Milano, the famous house. And as it always happens in Italy and elsewhere, let me not mention names, everything is political. And so he got into a fight with the authorities, and he was hoping for his orchestra, his own musicians, to back him up in this fight with the authorities. Instead, he got a letter signed by all 700 musicians working for La Scala. And they were all saying, Maestro Muti, you're a wonderful conductor. We know that. Whenever we follow your very clear instructions, we get a fantastic musical experience. But on the way to this fantastic experience, something terrible happens to us as musicians, thinking musicians, and as human beings. Because by this complete authority, you don't leave any room for that, and it kills us. So in the long run, you're hurting us. So better go. And he did go, and he was heartbroken, I can tell you. But don't worry, he's now in America. He got a fine job in America.
I know.
But in America, all kinds of things can happen. We don't know why. And
yes, I think, yes, that's true. But at the same time, this is a lesson for all of us, because all of us has an autocratic inside us, no matter how open we are, how creative we want to be. And that when this autocratic is in charge, I think this reminds me always that it limits the space for people, for their creativity, for their presence. And actually it limits that spiritual quality of coming together. I think when we come together in every setting with this just enough structure, room for emergence, there's something spiritual that emerges sometimes we hear it as a music, sometimes we hear it as a common voice in the group, but I think that's the magic of leading as a participant.
Definitely. We talked a lot about Kleiber, this fantastic dancer, and somebody, and it's not my idea, but somebody just told me, the other day, he said, when Muti, the autocrat, he stands in a pool of water and he makes such huge, gestures, and he creates waves, huge waves, very impressive. But he says, Kleiber not only makes huge waves, he also surfs the same wave. So there's this cycle, again, this, circle of creating the energy, and then it comes back. And of course, everybody is gaining, more and more by this kind of a full circle communication.
one of our past speakers, Mihaly, he talks about the concept of flow instead of order and alignment, which are all military terms as well. So that reminds me that. So we now know, we will be talking about the need to become, to lead like a conductor. You will also go deeper in the qualities of leading like a conductor. But in your experience, how is the experience of leading like a conductor is, what can you say anything about that? Well, what is that experience like? I think you've given him hints, but maybe you can expand a little bit.
Well, one needs to be a poet for that. We spoke about the, can you describe the experience of surfing the waves, in the sea, or, there are things that have such a, physical dimension to them, and which transform into, as we said something even higher in terms of transcendent. Well, of course, for me, the sound itself is intoxicating. I'm sorry. You really, it engulfs you. No matter how much you invest in your stereo at home, it will never be a good orchestra that's just sitting around you, and that's a privilege. That's a great privilege. On the other hand, I have to say, without spoiling the party, much of the working life experience is of frustration, because orchestral musicians, they see a lot of guest conductors. The music director, he and she, and then many guests are coming for the season, and most of them will be autocratic, I would say. So you're told to do this today, you're told to do this way. Could be very, nice people, smiling, but basically telling people what to do all the time. So most orchestras kind of give up. My great teacher, Bernstein, I saw him fighting with orchestras to understand, for people in the orchestra, until they started to realize what great value there is for them in actually holding their side of the dialogue. Because, you can have a dialogue like a monologue, it's not, you really have to have a partner. And so you need people to kind of get out of their cynicism, the just being tired, It might be strange for you that I speak about artists, musicians in those terms, but this is a factory to make music. And if it wouldn't be like that, if it would be some kind of a magical, Disney world, then we would not have a connection to everyday life. The connection is exactly that we start from people frustrated, people working too much long hours with many directors that they don't like, having to play music that they don't like, etc., etc., etc. Very rigid in many. And then you have to break so many conventions in order to build something more. And so there's a lot of frustration in it. I was lucky to be not only with Bernstein, also with Claudio Abbado, another great conductor, and I was assisting him. So I saw the greatest of the greatest really, having to struggle to get what they wanted. And so there's a lot, you want to be a conductor, a lot of persistence is also needed.
Wonderful. I think this is time to get one or two questions from the audience. So I will invite. I have one question that I want to reflect is, I think in Turkey still the management is quite directive, and as you said, autocratic can be autocratic. So what can we learn from orchestras to deal with autocratic management as the people working in the organizations?
Well, this is it takes two to tango.
Okay.
If you're stuck or your boss is completely stuck, sometimes I don't want to, to be just a hypocrite and say, love will save us. Sometimes, it's you have to resign and go somewhere else. But if that's not the case, then there are certainly very small incremental changes that you can do in the kind of responsibility you take as a player that will hopefully give your boss a feeling that, you know, they don't have to stick to this. Maybe they can expand a little bit. There will be still days when they're the same old autocrat, you know, dictatorial or directive, if you want to say, to be nice. But there could be something more. Yeah, again, I don't think, if we were speaking about those sweat shops in China where they put the iPhones together, maybe there you cannot change a lot. I don't want to be, you know, to sound completely not connected to reality. But most organizations are not like that, right? There's a kind of you know, give and take between, and you can also always find the right figure. There are not just one boss, there are several, and there will be a way to actually, so it's a lot about what you are willing to do in terms of taking responsibility as an employee.
Wow. Okay. And I will take one last question. And what was your challenge, the biggest challenge in your career, or one of the biggest challenges in your career as a conductor, and how did you deal with that?
I failed.
Okay. So, but what did you do with the failure in that case? That let me take it to my question.
Yeah, you know, maybe I think of it as a big important moment because I realized then that I failed, and it made it important for me to learn something from it. I'll just mention one thing. I was working with Bernstein, Lenny Bernstein, and I was amazed of how he could sometimes, after hard, long work, but still reach to a point where the openness of communication between him and the orchestra allowed him to make them full partners. Not to make them, they made themselves full partners. They took his invitation. And I thought I'd do the same with my orchestra. I went back to Israel in Tel Aviv. I had a symphony orchestra, the Tel Aviv Symphony Orchestra. The problem was that my orchestra was made of almost entirely of newcomers and new immigrants from the former USSR. Wow. I mean, from Russia, from the Soviet Union. Were fantastic musicians. They made Aliyah, what we say, they immigrated to Israel, and now they play in my orchestra. Great musicians, but the culture, the culture. And I thought I'll be like Bernstein. You know, I said, you know, this doesn't work so well. Tell me what you think. What should we do? And instead of actually, you know, starting a discussion, they were completely like this. And then one of them was brave enough to say, where we come from, the boss doesn't have to ask what to do. He knows what to do. I thought I was doing them, you know, like giving them respect, like you be my partner. And they thought we are working for an idiot. You know, he doesn't know what to do. He's asking us. So that's exactly this gap of cultural, you know, conditioning that almost every conductor have to tackle with almost every orchestra. And for me, it was a very low point to start going up again with those people.
Actually, I think the values and the culture of the group that you're working with, and how can you live with that values, because there are not, you know, there are no universal values. That's, I think, what we come to learn. Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And I have one last question for us to close in a way. You know, between now and 10 November, what is the message that you would like to leave our audience? What's the question that you would like to leave them with until we see you live?
Well, I don't feel comfortable with, you know, even thinking that far for our audience.
Okay.
Sure, I could ask them. If I could only ask them, I would get a bunch of questions more interesting. But I'll tell you what's on my mind.
Yes.
Because here we are, you know, on Zoom. I cannot say that I don't, you know, have some kind of an opening to your, may I say, human qualities. Excuse my you know, pathetic language, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So it takes, it's like, you know, as a conductor, you think in real time, what's happening? What, is there something I should, you know, but also you think in future tense, where are we going? It's, I'm sure also as a manager, you have to think, but of course in conducting it's all happening like in an F-16, you have to be very quick because it flies very, so that's what I feel now. I feel we have to do the best with what we have now, but never forget that this is, you know, forced on us as a partial reality. Thanks to God, we can, you know, speak through technology, but I now only want more to be in your physical presence and, you know, and become, you know, friends with you. And so maybe that's my message to myself. That's what I'm trying to do this month.
Yeah, wonderful. I think it's a great reminder for us that that this relational quality in the physical presence of others, and all the possibilities that can happen in that presence. I think that thank you for reminding that for us.
Completely.
And well, Itay, thank you so much for your time. We are looking forward to welcoming you in November, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations.
Same here, same here.
Yes, and thank you again, and you have a wonderful summer, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.